Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about marathon training. I want to go over some of the important fundamental concepts you got to understand when you get into marathon training, as well as a few of the key sessions that you should include or at least consider including in your training program. So number one, if you're going to train for a marathon, you do need several months to prepare properly for it. If you're coming from a low volume or no volume running background, you might want even more time than that because going from 0 to 26 is quite a jump. And if you try to do it too quickly, you have a really high chance of injury or overuse injury or acute injury, meaning like, you tear something. So we need to be careful in our buildup for a marathon. That's basically the first rule of marathon training is to be careful. Number two, when you're doing your training in an ideal situation, your long run is not going to be more than 50% of your total running volume. And really, it should be even less. I realize that that can be very difficult if you're a busy adult with adulty things that you have to do. So, for example, let's say you're in, I don't know, whatever, week 10 and you're up to a 15-mile long run. Ideally, during the week, you can squeeze in 3 5-mile runs or a 3, a 5, and an 8 or something along those lines so that that long run distance is not more than 50% of your weekly mileage. There's going to be times where you just can't pull that off, but that's the goal. And ideally, even less, 30 to 40%. Running repetition. So, when you're training for a marathon versus training for a triathlon, you do want to run more often. So, in a triathlon schedule, you might only be doing 3 or 4 runs a week. With a marathon schedule, you want to go to 4, 5, maybe even 6 times a week. If you're a higher level runner, like an elite level runner, you're going to be running even more than that. You're probably going to be doing doubles on a couple of days a week, and you're certainly going to be doubling up, on the weekends for longer stuff. So, there's different levels, different approaches. With the key workouts, your weekly key workout, like a Wednesday or Thursday sort of interval run, is going to be more tempo style, meaning kind of hard or a little closer to like a half marathon pace, where you might go out and do mile repeats. I've talked about this in some of the other videos, but for a marathon, we might go out and do a warm up of 2 or 3 miles, 6 or 8 times 1 mile at 10K to half marathon pace with short recoveries, like 1 or 2 minute walk jog recovery, and then a mile or two cool down. So that's, a 10-mile workout right there. That would be for somebody who is, capable of running 10 miles without feeling too beat up afterwards. Other workouts that you want to always include are going to be your drills workouts, right? So you warm up 30, 45 minutes, and then you do a dedicated 10 to 20 minute drills section, which would be things like high knees, butt kicks, bounds, strides, height skips, etc. Right? So, you spend a good bit of time working on your form. Those are form and power related drills. Long runs. So let's talk about this from a beginner to an advanced standpoint. So with our long runs, ideally, let's say it's your first marathon, ideally you get up to a 16 to 18 mile long run, maybe a little more if everything is going well and you're healthy and you have no issues. The way we build up over the weeks is by not doing more than a 10% increase on that long run mileage. So an easy way to view that is like you go from 6 miles to 7 miles. I realize that's not exactly 10%, but going from 10 to 11 is 10%, right? So that sort of approach. And ideally, again, you're not going to straight line that long run distance up from like 5 to 18. You're going to go 5, 6, 7, 6, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 7, 8, 9, 6, so you're going to build up. And that's why the whole progression takes several months. in order to do that safely. With the effort on your long run, a lot of these will be easy, steady. So not even approaching your goal marathon pace, but if you're a beginner, your goal marathon pace should just be kind of finishing. And then some of them will be at goal marathon pace, right? So let's say you think you can run about a 4 hour, that's a 9:02 or something like that. And so you would warm up 2 or 3 miles nice and easy, and then you might do 6 to 10 miles at goal marathon pace. You will find in your experience with this that holding pace at those later miles becomes more and more difficult, which is why we have to train for these things. And ideally, like I said, getting up to a 16 or 18 miler would be really good, a little more if you can. Now for your intermediate level, let's say you've done a marathon or two, you've got some running experience, and you're now getting into, I want to hit like a competitive time goal. There are some different variations on the long run that you want to consider. One of my favorites is the progression run, where the end of the run, not counting the cool down, is faster than the beginning of the run. So let's say you do a 30-minute warm up, then you have 30 to 40 minutes that's kind of at or just slower than your marathon pace. And then you have 30 or 40 minutes that is faster, maybe at or just a little bit faster than your marathon pace. You don't want to be like running 10K pace or 5K pace at the finish, because that's not what you're training for. You want to be at or just slightly faster than your marathon pace. And then you cool down. That would be a roughly 2 hour run, depending on how you split up the times. Another really good one is over and under intervals. So you would warm up as always, and then do somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes, just tiny bit faster than goal pace, and then 7 to 10 minutes, just a tiny bit slower than goal pace. So, for example, if you were, 3 hour or 3.5, let's go 3.5. 3 hours is getting pretty good, but I know you're out there. 3.5 would be 8-ish minute, 8:05, something like that. So we would do 7 minutes at like 7:50 pace, and then we would do 7 minutes at like 8:20 pace. So it's a real tight range that we're keeping ourselves in there. And for you intermediate level marathon runners, you want to be getting up to the more like 18, 20, 21 mile for your long run. Same rule holds true for your weekly mileage, in that you want the long run to not be more than 50% of your total weekly mileage, right? So you're looking at, some 35, 40, 45 mile weeks, depending on how much you're able to fit into the week. Advanced runners, there would be a separate talk about this, and there are some specific marathon coaches that are going to have a lot more tips for you as far as advanced marathon running goes. But now you should be running 5, 6, maybe even 7 days a week. A lot of those runs are going to be easy, what we would call recovery runs. But it could be a 3 or 6 mile, 3 to 6 mile easy run. And if you're a super fit runner, you should be able to dial in that easy pace. When your mileage gets high like this, now you're probably in the 50 plus mile range. You want to run on softer surfaces as much as you can. Dirt trails, like a flat dirt road, is excellent because of the amount of pounding that your body is taking with the mileage that you're putting on. So do everything you can, and this is true for everybody, but do everything you can to get to soft surfaces. Now, your advanced running, you're going to be into the 21, 22, 23, maybe even you're hitting a 24, 25 mile long run. And you're going to be doing a lot more of that at marathon pace, right? So one of the things about your advanced status is that you're going to spend more time running fast. How much you can do that without breaking down is the trick. So you need to be super in touch with how your body is feeling and back off if you feel something is starting to not feel right. All right, that's a non-scientific way of saying try to be smart about how hard you're going. You can afford to do some higher level intervals in your training approach, provided that you recover well, like you're not wrecking yourself for the next couple of days of training. And that would be stuff at like 5K pace. But you also want to be doing those progression runs, the over under miles, the tempo miles, right? And so now we're talking about, quite a load of training. Other things all marathon runners should consider: all your strength. You need to keep up with your strength training. It's critical. If I mean, you can get away with not doing strength training for a season or two, but after a couple of seasons, it's going to come back to bite you. So you need to strengthen everything around the muscles that are working the hardest so that the tendons and ligaments are not getting overly stressed. All right. Core strength is going to be very important, maintaining posture, hip flexor ability, flexibility for everybody, super important. So you should be doing yoga, foam rolling, post run stretching, prehab stretching. If you've been assigned PT exercises, you need to do those forever. And then with high level, even if you consider yourself a beginner runner, but you're running 30 miles a week, that's a lot of running. You need to make sure you're staying on top of your nutrition and hydration on a daily basis, because if we get a little bit dehydrated, it's going to affect our recovery, our performance, and everything down the line. Things I like as supplemental training: elliptical. If you need to skip a run, you're having a little difficulty, or you just can't fathom another run, elliptical is good. Bike is good. Going out and getting a walk in sometimes is going to be good. And then there are things like the gravity assisted treadmills, where you hooked up to a harness and you can take some of your body weight off. So if you are a more delicate runner, you really should consider things like that to supplement your running or in place of your running. Because if speaking from just marathon training, right? If you're looking at, wow, I can train 10 hours of run training, that's a ton. And maybe you need to cut back out a little bit of that and do different exercises as opposed to just running, especially as you get older. Once you are 50, 60, 70, you have to be real careful with how you're doing everything. So that doesn't cover everything about marathon training, but I hope it covered a lot. This video is about Ironman training. This is us. See you next time.